we go to an important guest, Melanie Dorigo. She's running in New York's 3rd district. And there's been a lot of redistricting in New York as well. Melanie, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
All right, great to have you here. So first, tell us how redistricting has affected New York overall before we get to your race in particular.
Yes, so it was quite the disaster, if I'm being honest. I think Democrats got super greedy. They redistricted in a way that didn't make sense. They lost their way a little bit at the expense of many of our communities, which was really unfortunate. The maps got thrown out, and we just recently got our new maps about a month ago. So many of us are as quickly as possible and as furiously as possible trying to reach as many voters as we can before the primary.
How long ago did you get the new maps?
About a month ago.
Yeah. Okay, now New York.
So it actually caused.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say it actually caused us to split the primary, right? So today we have the gubernatorial primary and the state assembly primaries, but because the maps were just such a disaster, and we just got the new ones about a month ago, they moved the congressional primaries and the state senate primaries till August 23rd. So we've got about 8 more weeks left of our race.
Okay, so you're not up for election today, but you've got the governor's race, the lieutenant governor's race, and all the state races today in New York. And in lower New York, as in the state of New York, we had an absolute mess with Sean Patrick Maloney going into Mondaire Jones district, Mondaire Jones thinking about going into Jamal Bowman's district, but then going into an empty district, which no longer was empty because Bill de Blasio's in it. I mean, and then you've got the other Maloney running against Gerald Nadler, 2 very long time Democratic incumbents. So it's just an enormous mess in New York. So given that, tell us about your district. What happened there?
Yeah, so it's absolutely the wild, wild west. So my district, the first time that it was redistricted, went from way out east in Long Island up to the Connecticut border. We had a state senator jump in the race who now is actually challenging Sean Patrick Maloney. It's just been wild. I think of all the candidates running with the final rendition of maps, we actually made out quite well. We now will be representing a significant portion of Nassau County, mid and northern Nassau County, as well as northeastern Queens.
So, with the changes in your race, which were significant, what does that district look like now? Meaning, like, what are your chances? Are you awed by the money that will be spent against you?
Listen, you don't run as a progressive if you're afraid of the money that's going to be spent against you, right? We come from the community. We've been building in the community. I ran for this seat in 2020 against a really entrenched corporate Democrat. I use the word Democrat very, very lightly in that sense. Look, now we're running in a race that, or a district that should be more Democratic than it was previously. So we're excited about that. But I come from organizing. So we've been organizing at the community level for years. They're going to outspend us, but I saw a moment ago you were talking about Ryan Graham. We've got people, and that is really the anthem here. We've got people all over the district and even outside of the district that are coming in to help us knock doors from our former district because they believe in what we're doing. They believe in the message. It is time for change. My district has never been represented by a woman. It's never been represented by a progressive. I don't think it's ever been represented by anyone who's refused lobbyist and corporate money. So we're really breathing fresh air here, and we're showing that a progressive can run and a progressive can win. We've got the most endorsements, the largest base of support. Not only are we exciting the base like it's never been excited before, but we are actually expanding the electorate. And I think we're giving voters some much needed hope right now in a time where, frankly, folks are just absolutely fed up at the pay to play environment that is happening, all over the country.
So I want to let Nina Turner and David Schuster jump in here in a second, but I had one more question. New York is a little bit different than other states in that progressives actually fight against establishment Democrats. and that's not considered like the most radical thing in the whole wide world. So tell us about that dynamic a little bit, because in other parts it's considered sacrilege to fight against establishment Democrats, but it happens quite often in New York, doesn't it?
Well, it happens quite often in New York City. That happens a lot. Where I am, we're in suburbia. We are in Long Island, and even though we have part of Queens, which is technically New York City, it's the suburbs of Queens. So there's still a lot of that. Well, how dare you step up and run against a do-nothing establishment Democrat, right? And I think I got a lot of that in 2020 in that cycle. We got a lot of pushback, but we have really won voters over by educating people. Especially in areas that have not had a lot of organization from, or help from these, big whale organizations. I think it's incumbent on progressives to get in the community and really, reach out with olive branches and explain why is Medicare for all, the path forward? Why is corporate money dangerous, right? Why do we need to address our climate crisis? And I think when we meet them with real solutions, we're able to build in an incredible way. So, we still get the pushback, but I do think it's not, I don't know, it's becoming more of the norm in New York because we're not taking it, we're not rolling back or sitting back and taking it.
Melanie, it's David Schuster here. I'm going to ask a question on behalf of my nephew, who is a student at Hofstra at Hempstead, which I believe is part of your congressional district under the new map. I'm not sure.
It's a little south, but that's
a little bit south. All right, but for anybody who's in that part of sort of Long Island, who's looking up and seeing the Supreme Court has suddenly taken away this New York law, 100-year-old law about New York's right in terms of to restrict guns, and also now Roe versus Wade has been thrown out. How do you make the argument? What is the argument when people say, okay, Melanie, how are you going to be different? How are you why should we support you as opposed to the other Democrat in the primary when it seems like, and we hear this a lot from establishment Democrats, everybody's in this together. We all have the same position on abortion.
We don't, though. We don't have the same position on abortion. For decades, for essentially as long as Roe v. Wade has been, well, previously the law of the land, the Hyde Amendment has existed. So we don't have the same position. And I think this is a moment that requires real conviction. It requires real fighters to do what is necessary. Look, we're in the fight of our lives. We are in a fight for our democracy. And that is not hyperbolic. That is where we're at right now. It is going to be a long slog. And if we continue to elect these same old rubber stamp, head nodding Democrats, we are never going to fix these problems. We might as well all move out of the country. If we want to take this country back, we've got to send fighters to DC. And that is the only way forward. And I just have to say, because she was on screen a moment ago, thank goodness for people like Nina Turner, who have just set such an incredible example for people like me and other candidates across the country to show us that it's possible. I can't wait until you're our president, Nina. We need you. And I just want to, have so much gratitude and so much love in my heart for folks like you, because you embody the fight and you really show us that it's possible. So, thank you for that. And that's what we need to keep doing. We need to take a little bit of Nina's spirit and fight like hell in our communities.
No, thank you for your kind words, Melanie. But you are fighting like hell too, and I'm inspired by you. Speaking of that, what motivated? You ran in 2020, and here you are in 2022, putting yourself, your family, your community through this again. What is that thing or set of things that motivated you to be back on this battlefield 2 years later?
Yeah, well, look, I grew up, most people don't know, I grew up like dirt poor. I wasn't raised by my parents. I was raised by my grandparents. Many nights we didn't have enough food to eat. I really lived, I had a tough childhood. I was the first in my family to go to college, and I clawed every step of the way, to create a better life for myself. So I know what that's like. When we talk about making sure that kids have enough food, when we talk about making sure kids have opportunities to go to school, we talk about healthcare and making sure that families can afford it. I know what that's like because that was my family. So, the fact that I have had such an opportunity to better myself, and I know how hard that was. I don't want any kid to have to go through what I went through. So it is just deeply rooted in who I am to fight to make sure that every single person in this country can live a dignified life. And when we see these Democrats who would rather, trade away, our kids' future for a lobbyist check, it doesn't sit right with me. We need representatives who are more concerned about the next school getting shot up than they are about where the next campaign check is coming from. And frankly, I'm a mom myself. I have 3 little kids. They're 11, 7, and 5. And I'll be damned. I will be damned if I sit back and watch their future get sold off to the highest bidder.
All right, Melanie Dorigo, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the fight.
Thank you.
By the way, Melanie's backed by almost every progressive group. And so she's got all of their endorsements. Go to DorigoForCongress.com, DorigoForCongress.com to help Melanie out. Melanie, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.